So today I'm bringing back the list of all the shows I've watched. We've got some new additions. We've got some Spy Family. We've got some Tomodachi. We got a couple things in there. We got some new additions to my fully watched anime tier list. But today I'm ranking every first episode from every anime that I've watched. Shout out to Lag, my boy. This was his idea. Appreciate you for letting me use it. But like and subscribe, you know what time it, you know what we do over here. I'm not even going to explain it every time. But I'm just going to cut the chit chat, hop right into it. Bleach. First episode, God tier already. We already have a first God tier, and the reason why it's God tier, it could be a but. First off, I'm biased. Second of all, the whole atmosphere of the show. When you first start, the hollows are scary creatures. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are not a lot of creatures in a lot of these shows that I've watched, because I've watched a lot of mainstream shit. There's not a lot of creatures that like make me eerie and make me like scared in a way, but the hollows, like, they're I don't know, and the noises they were making, it was actually semi scary. And I appreciated that. But also Ichigo just getting stabbed by Rukia, taking the powers and then going ham. It was great. And then he was rocking a big ass sword. It was a great first episode, introduced the show in a great way. I don't think it could have been any better than it was. God tier. Classic. Future Diary realistically had an A tier first episode. This show is not talked about enough either. Great show. I mean, we see Yuki and kind of get into some scuffle thing, and then we see Yuki getting this shit on his phone, and he's like, what the fuck is going on? And then we find out that there's actually this game where there's like 12 other phone users who each have different type of abilities, I guess, with their future diary. But the whole concept of the show, like right off the bat, you're like, damn, this is interesting, and it's a good hook, and it draws you in, and you want to see more, and that's exactly what it's supposed to do. So I'm gonna give Future Diary an A tier. Death Note, another god tier. Whole concept of the show is top tier. Seeing a goddamn notebook fall from the sky from a Shinigami into the hands of the smartest kid in the school, that's a concept at it already. And then you see Light go through something where he's like, should I really be using this? What am I gonna do with this? Like, he was kind of like not necessarily flustered. He kept his composure, but you know, that's a lot of power in the hands of someone, you know, and you see him just sitting there kind of testing it, figuring out what exactly he's going to do. And the way you're introduced to the show and just the darkness of it off the bat, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it definitely hooked me in. Iconic, just as iconic as Bleach. And that's really it with Death Note. Hunter x Hunter honestly had a C tier first opening. It mainly focused on Gon, and it was just very boring. You know, in terms of like hooking the audience, it took a couple episodes for Hunter x Hunter. They didn't really do it in the first episode, because you could really do one of three things actually. You could either hook the first episode, hook a couple episodes in, or just not really hook at all, you know. So in Hunter x Hunter took that couple of episodes for me, and the first episode was very, very mid. I don't even use that word. That's not really in my everyday vernacular. That's really what it was. It was a very, very average mid episode. Doesn't mean the show's bad. Show's top 10, top 5 even, possibly, depending on the day, in my opinion, of course. But the first episode was okay, nothing crazy. Mob Psycho had it was solid first episode. I would give Mob Psycho a B. We're introduced to a very beautiful, colorful world. One Punch Man type of drawings. And off the bat, you're just kind of introduced to Mob and Reagan, and it was a good introductory episode. There wasn't anything crazy going on, but it was a very solid introductory episode. Now, I don't know what it is with me and Mushoku, but I like Mushoku Tense's first episode a lot. I think the way that he gets isekai'd, like every other show, you get like either just die of old age or get hit by a car or jump off a bridge, you know, type of deal. And then I'm pretty sure he got hit by a car, Rudius, in his past life. You see him reincarnate as a kid though, like a toddler, a baby boy. You know, like you don't see that often, at least in the isekai I've watched. With Subaru in Re:Zero, he kind of just spawned there, and then with Slime, obviously he turned to a slime. Shield Hero, he was the same, just respawned with like powers and shit, you know. So he respawned as a toddler, like he just came out the womb. And you see him, I think in that first episode, just develop habits, and he's having this inner monologue, which is very, very interesting to see, because he has the mind of this 40-year-old, but he's crawling around looking at women's underwear, you know. So there's the comedy aspect to it, but you're actually like, at least in my case, I was kind of thrown back, and I was like, damn, like, okay, this is interesting, because what the fuck, you know, he's kind of perverted, and it's funny at times, but it was also weird. And the explicit aspects of the show off the bat were kind of like surprising to me, and I really didn't expect it. So that also kind of kept me invested into the show as well, because I was like, wow, how adultish is this show going to get? Like, not even on some weird shit, you know, not even on anything weird, like legitimately, like the show was looking like it was going to push some boundaries that I have never seen before. So I was also interested into that. And I think it was a very, very strong first episode on the cusp of God tier. On the cusp. but it's not there yet. Dr. Stone, on the other hand, though, I think had a god tier first episode just due to the fact that you see Senku in his normal years, and he's like a not top of his class, probably top of his class realistically, Senku, but you know, he's killing shit in the laboratory, going crazy, broccoli top, and then the whole world turns to stone, and then you instantly see him get unpetrified, pull up, do it to some other people, and he finds the serum, I think, at the end of the episode or whatever. I'm a little foggy on that one, but I'm pretty sure he wakes up, and then he wakes up his other dude. They find the cave with the syrup, and then they go to wake up Tsukasa, if I recall correctly, or the girl first, one of the other two. But it was just, the scenery in the show was beautiful, the animation and shit, but just seeing how they were literally stuck as stones for like, was it hundreds of years? I'm pretty sure it was thousands of years. Maybe it was hundreds, but still, it was like, what is actually going to happen? How are they going to fix this? And what even is the source of this petrification? That's like the one thing that was on my mind the whole time. I was like, is this some alien shit? Is this just some science experiment that's went wrong? Like, what is it? So what's going on? And I was instantly invested into that concept. So I personally thought Dr. Stone had a god tier first episode. Dragon Ball Z, Raditz pulled up, showed what he was capable of, talked some shit, and that was really it. Honestly, B tier. It was solid. It was okay. Tokyo Ghoul, another god tier for me. Definitely drew me in. I mean, listen, if I'm Kaneki, I'm taking the opportunity to risk or not. The times that they live in, you know, it's probably risky doing some shit that he did. I'm not gonna lie. Am I doing it though? Yes, I am going on a date with her. I am. I will be attending that date, and if she bites me, I'll bite her right back. We can just go like that. If we want to get sexual, we can get sexual. It's okay. But no, seeing that happen to him and him actually acquire these like half-cool powers and all this shit, and him have some sort of mental breakdown. I don't remember if the mental breakdown was in the first or the second episode, but either way, if it's there or if it's not, the episode is still a god tier episode, because the whole introduction into the world, knowing like how fucked up the Ghoul world was, it was like, how is this sweetheart kid gonna survive it? Like, how is this literal innocent child going to survive with this lifestyle? Next 91 days, it was solid. You know, I think from what I remember, the main character was just still a kid. We're introduced to the whole gangster lifestyle of the show. 91 days is a very solid show. I would definitely consider watching that if you haven't. It's only 12 episodes, but yeah, no, first episode was okay, solid. Now, I don't know if this is for nostalgic reasons, but I think Naruto would have to be god tier for me. Steal the scroll and then be this weakling, this dork who everyone kind of picks on, and he's like the outcast of the village, and like seeing how Iruka treats him really good, and then see Naruto go crazy and see that he actually like has this chakra reserve that's massive, and he could spawn all of these shadow clones, and he beats up this adult. And if I'm Iruka, I'm gonna be pretty embarrassed if this 8-year-old or 9-year-old, however old Naruto is at the time, is beating ass for me, and I'm a whole ass Jonin. I would be upset. I would probably retire as a ninja right there. But instead he embraces it, which is also another mature thing to do, and then decides like he's gonna train Naruto. Naruto gets into it and he becomes a ninja, and it's great. Very wholesome, and it's a good peek into what Naruto is. So I think it's just a god tier episode. ReZero, I would say A tier. 2 isekai, A tier. But yeah, no, we see Subaru in the real world. He either passes out or just dies straight up. I don't remember, but he wakes up in the fantasy world, and you meet Amelia, and he's up in the alley, and like there's these goons, and she pulls up, saves him, does whatever, and at the end of the episode, I'm pretty sure Subaru dies again, and then he pulls up right back to the same market he just spawned in, and he has like checkpoints and shit, and it's very interesting. Very, very interesting. ReZero is a great show, and I think it started off very strong too. And yeah, that's really all I gotta say about it. A tier. Full Metal, I would say it's probably A tier. There's a lot of action going on, and you're introduced to Ed and Al, and you also get a glimpse and see like what actually made Al into the suit, and where their mother is, and what happened to that, and how that all came about. But then there's also, they're fighting this battle with this dude. I forgot all the specifics by it, but there's a lot of action going on, a lot of story elements, and there was always something happening the whole time, and I appreciated it. So FMAB, A tier first episode. Twin Star, I don't really remember. I looked it up. I watched this shit back in like early high school. I never really ended up liking the show that much. The only thing I liked was the way they did their moves and like the animation that would happen when they did it. But other than that, the first episode was okay. Not even okay. It was a little bit under average. I wasn't hooked into the show at all, really, off that first episode. Black Clover is a B tier. It's definitely one of those typical shonen type of anime first episodes. You know, Asta has no powers. Everyone ends up getting their powers. And then Asta is thrown into a situation where he kind of would need powers to win, and then he awakens his powers. But they're his powers, you know. He awakens his innate power. It's just he got them by different means than everyone else. But very solid first episode. You get a very small glimpse into like that demon form that everyone, when you start Black Clover, and everyone's probably seen the demon form of Asta, his like half demon thing, you're like, oh damn, I want to see that. So you get a little glimpse into that, like a very, very small one, and you're like, okay, you expect it to come up soon, and then you have to wait like 70 episodes to see it. But it was definitely worth it. It was definitely worth it, and that first episode kept me into it. So I would say B tier. Tokyo Revengers is another one I would say that's B tier. You see Takamichi get pushed into the train tracks. You're like, who the fuck did that? Now aside, when you actually find out who pushed him in the train tracks, however many episodes in the future, that shit was kind of hot. But no, that's not what we're talking about right now. And then he ends up going back into the past, and then he's at school when he was like in his dorky yellow-haired phase, and then he's like having all these inner monologues like what's going on, this and that, and you meet his whole crew, and then you find out that you have a girlfriend at the time. He meets up with her brother, they shake hands, and then he ends up going back to the future, and then the brother is now a cop and then confronts him after he falls into the tracks, and he's like, yo, this just happened this morning or whatever. My sister is now messed up. You need to save the world. Not save the world, but save my sister by going back and forth in the timeline, fixing everything with these criminals and this and that. And it's a very interesting concept for a show I love very, very much. And the first episode was definitely, it kept me in there. The only problems I really had with it and why it's in B tier is just the middle portion of it, like the school portion. While it was very introductory, it was also slightly boring for me. So that was kind of where I stood with that one. But next we got Vinland Saga, another B. I would say another B, just because Thorfinn, as I said, shows will either hook you in with the first episode or the first couple, and Vinland's kind of when they hook you in with the first couple. You're introduced to his father, who is sort of the main focus for the first couple episodes, and you get a glimpse of the action at the beginning, but you're more so also focusing on Thorfinn and how he is a child and how he develops a bit, like up until his father's incident, and then how he develops again. But the first episode alone, great visual scenery, and it was just a great look into the world of Vikings, which was a concept I was kind of excited for because I've never watched a show on Vikings at this point in my life, like when I was starting Vinland. So it was definitely, I was interested. It kept me interested, and it did nothing crazy, but it did everything well. So that's why it's B tier. Blood Blockade, I would honestly put maybe in like D tier, just because I really didn't know what was going on, and I just wasn't really interested in the show in that first episode. You're not going to be interested in every show that first episode, but I don't know, I just wasn't really feeling it that much. And then you see like the gray-haired guy's blood blade thing, and you're introduced to the main character Leo and his eye thing and a couple other characters, but you're kind of confused also, and it was a sort of a mess, I felt like, and the whole show is a mess. I don't know where it's like, it's cool, but it's like it's okay. Next we got Fire Force. I would say Fire Force is another B tier. Introduced Seven Deadly. Oh my, we're just stacking up B's. Seven Deadly was another B. Got to meet Meliodas and kind of look at his perverted ways, and then meet Elizabeth, and then Meliodas kicks that big guy's ass, who was like hyped the fuck up, and then he kind of one-shot him, which was kind of embarrassing. And then he's just like, Elizabeth, you want to go with me to the place? And then she was like, yeah. No, I would say C, actually. It was average. She was just like, yeah, I'll go to the place with you. And yeah, Meliodas seemed interesting. She seemed interesting. I definitely wanted to meet the other Shins. So that's kind of what brought me in as well. But no, the episode in itself was average. It was cool. It was okay. Next we got Tanya, Saga the Evil, or whatever. I mean, the concept alone, I was like, why is this 6-year-old taking lead in the military, beating everyone up? So I was already interested at that point. I never actually finished the show, but you get a little glimpse into like her whole world and what's going on and why she is the age that she is. And it's definitely interesting. And there's a lot of action in the first episode, and I did enjoy it a lot. So yeah, I would say B tier for that one. Attack on Titan, one of the most iconic first episodes, definitely got tier. It did get boring briefly, but I mean, seeing the colossal Titan just drop down and look over seeing Berthold drop down and look over the wall, and then also seeing that shit from his perspective, like however many seasons down the line, that shit was cool. But no, seeing that happen, and then seeing Aaron's mom get eaten and all that, and the show just instantly got so gory and scary and like intense and serious. It was nice. It was very, very like, wow, okay, I have to watch this show. I was instantly wanting more after that first episode. In shock, even. Like, I was like, damn, okay, this is it. This is that show. So yeah, but next we got Parasite. I mean, A tier. The concept of the show alone was already not a deal breaker, but I was already interested off the jump. And then we see this talking hand Parasite thing, and then the main character just getting this random buff. Not random buff, but like he's getting like insanely strong off of these parasitic beings. And then we see that there are also other parasitic beings and people just like chomping off heads and shit. So it was good. It was really good. Really, really good. I enjoyed Parasite first episode a lot. There wasn't like the most story, but it was very like good introduction into the world and like the powers that he was getting and the character relationship he was going to have with the hand. So I did really like that. You can't talk first episodes if you're not talking Promised Neverland. I think we could all agree when we saw the end of Promised Neverland episode 1, not knowing what was like coming at the end, we were like in shock. I was sitting there like, oh shit, like this is serious. This is a serious show. I was wondering what the hype was about, and I didn't have any expectations as they were walking to the gate. You know, I didn't expect the girl to deadass just be eaten right there. I thought maybe something bad may have happened to her, but I didn't expect it to be blatantly like that, you know? So just seeing them pull up on her, and then the intensity of like them just like hiding under the car while these big ass demons are pulling up on them, I was like, wow, no way. And then you're kind of confused because you're like, why is the mom working with them? Is the mom a demon? What's going on? Who are they? Like, so there was a lot of questions at the end of that first episode. So it almost made you guaranteed hooked onto the show. So if you watched that Promised Neverland episode and you were hooked on after that first episode, you were honestly probably hating. There's just no way that any person who remotely enjoys anime watched that first episode and they're like, wow, I don't want to watch the second one. It just didn't happen. One of the most iconic God tier first episodes for me out of the shows that I've watched, 100%. Now with Boruto, I was initially going to put Boruto in C tier for the first episode, but I'm putting Boruto in A tier just for that last sequence, the time skip to adult Boruto. The amount of hype that I got, now the Boruto anime is not in the best place right now, don't get me wrong, it is kind of in a shit place, but the amount of hype that I got seeing Boruto with a cut leaf headband and some random ass Kekkei Genkai with some random ass dude Kawaki with this cold ass Karma Seal holding a sword, having Sasuke's cape with a completely busted leaf village. I mean, the amount of fucking hype that I was feeling in that moment, I was like, wow, this show is going to either be just as good as Naruto or be better. I was so excited. Now, don't get me wrong. I know the manga is kind of popping off right now. I don't read it like that, but I do know it's going. I do know it's doing good things. But I mean, as an anime watcher, watching that first episode, seeing how positive and happy everything is, and seeing Naruto like becoming Hokage, like legitimately, and how Boruto's happy, everyone's happy, and then seeing how it ended with that as like sort of like a sneak peek into what's to come in the future, I was like, wow, that is a completely different tone, because Naruto really doesn't get that dark, you know? Madara, the whole Madara fight, it was definitely like, wow, like Madara's this big bad enemy, but you know, Naruto and Sasuke, like you expected them to pull through. You expected them to pull through in some way, shape, or form. And then when they were fighting pain in them, that was probably the darkest it's got, because Kakashi got beamed in the fucking face. And then you're like, okay, well, there he goes. And then Hinata's like getting tied down, like Pain has some sort of fetish or something like that. And then, oh no, not Hinata. Naruto's getting tied down. Then you see Pain get ready to like go crazy on Hinata. So, I mean, it was getting dark in that aspect. With the Sasuke retrieval arc, it was definitely the darkest in terms of like, wow, I think Neji is dead. Wow, I think Choji is dead. And I thought they lost all hope. But with that scene from Boruto, I was like, wow. There were definitely main characters that like are not here anymore. That was instantly what I was thinking. And I thought Kawaki and Boruto were like the last two on Earth or something. And there were just so many theories going through my head at that point. And it was a great like cliffhanger. It was great. just to like theorize what would happen in the future to get to that point. So I mean, that shit was, if the actual episode itself was a bit better, it would be a god tier episode, but it just wasn't like the best episode. It was very average. Kame, B tier. It was okay. Got to meet the crew a little bit. Tatsumi was like helping this girl, and then the girl ended up being like an asshole, and there was all this shit, and it was good. It was a good introduction episode. That's really all I gotta say about it, honestly. Demon Slayer, I mean, I would have to say god tier, just because it's like we have Tanjiro living life, chilling. They may not have the most money, but at least they got their love. And then he's going doing his runs to the market or whatever. Everyone knows him. Shit's happy-go-lucky. Obviously, it's Demon Slayer, so it's not going to always be like that. But now he has this superhuman nose type of thing. He's smelling some shit. Goes back to the house frantically. Family's dead. Wow. How'd that happen? So then we find out sister is a demon now. Hybrid human demon. He wants to keep her alive, obviously. But then a Demon Slayer pulls up and is like, I'm gonna kill your sister, bitch. And he's like, nah, that ain't happening, G. And then he's fighting for his life on his last wits to try and keep Nezuko alive. And Gyu ends up having a change of heart. And then he's like, okay, well, if she like does some shit, like I'm gonna have to take the blame too and kind of kill myself. But I mean, I guess I'll do it for you. And then I think we meet Urokodaki or whatever his name is. And then that's all great and sweet. So it was a very complete episode, and there was like constant progression throughout, and there was never really a dull moment and wasted screen time, I feel like, with that first episode. So that's why I really like it, and I would say it's a god tier episode, and it really encapsulated a lot of people's interest since it became like the #1 anime for a very long period of time. One Piece, while I think One Piece is my favorite anime of all time, I do think the first episode was not necessarily the best. I would say it's probably A or B. It wasn't average by any means, and it was definitely okay. But I honestly want to say for one, actually, maybe it's, I'd say B. I would say B, just because it was like we were introduced to Luffy. You see that he ate the fruit as a kid, and now he's stretchy, jumps out of the crate to defeat the, he like punches the Marines, and then he's with Kobe or whatever. I mean, nostalgically, it would be god tier. But in terms of like episode quality and what was going on, it was like B. It was there were some iffy parts in it, and it was all right. It was all right. Tower of God, on the other hand, though, I would probably put in A. I know it's kind of criminal for me to have Boruto over One Piece now that I'm looking at it, and all of these other shows, but again, that end sequence, I think we could agree with some of the best shit to see at that time. Like, we have to be real here. But Tower of God, I thought had an A tier first episode. The animation and art style was great. I was kind of like thrown off by that off the bat. I was like, damn, that's very interesting and intriguing. But I mean, you see like this weird creature, alligator looking thing, I guess, with this staff, and then he looks very ominous, and then we see this random girl with a sword, and then Bam being like a very, very like introverted, quiet kid standing up to like this big ass beast. It's like, wow, what the fuck is about to go down? So I thoroughly like the whole ambiance of everything was very, very like grim and scary and intimidating, but like there's like something to be going on right now, and I did thoroughly enjoy it. Haikyuu, for a sports anime, god tier, and I'm saying that because we have Hinata carrying the fuck out of his middle school team. None of those people want to play, they're all scrubs, but he's still getting the job done to some degree. And then they're about to go up against this setter who is like the best middle school setter there is. Hinata goes Godspeed, surprises the fuck out of him, and gets like a mean shot off. And then Kageyama's like disoriented because he's like, wow, he's like 5'2", why is he doing this shit? And then Hinata's team ends up losing, of course, but then they end up going to the same school for high school because Kageyama was supposed to go to like a more upper class school, I think, but then didn't end up going. And then Hinata obviously just went to this one. They end up becoming teammates, and it's like, okay, this is what's gonna go down. And they have like this rivalry internally. So it's good off the bat. Very good setup. Yeah, no, but next we have Elfen Lied, which also had another god tier first opening. Damn, why did I say opening? I meant ending. Damn, why did I say ending? I meant first episode. Yeah, no, I mean, seeing Lucy just pull up, very, 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 very explicit, though. I was watching this in high school in a classroom. I don't know how I pulled it off. Walks out naked, and they're not afraid to show stuff. You know, they're definitely not afraid. This is old school, so they don't care. But they're showing everything. But she's just ripping off heads, and there's blood splattering everywhere, and then ends up going to this house, but she's like not really her old self. She's very sweet and like shy, but doesn't know like what's going on whatsoever. Gets kicked out of the house because she ended up breaking the dude's shell, and you're just very interested in her character. you're like, what even, why is she so violent and has these powers? What's her origins? All this and that. So it's just like, you want to watch more just because of like how everything started going down. And I thought it was great setup. Gosh, I'm just throwing out God tiers, but I mean, Ranking of Kings had another God tier first episode. It was so complete. We meet Boji walking around in his underwear getting laughed at, but he's the royalty in the kingdom, the prince. He's deaf, cannot hear. Meets Kage, who happens to be one of the only people at this point in time who could who Boji can have an actual an actual conversation with, and they both can understand each other fully. Kage's a scammer, whatever. he's a scammer, messed up, but then he starts to take a liking to Boji to some degree. Goes into his castle to spy on him, and we see Boji is about to brawl. He's about to brawl with his brother for practice. So his brother's all confident up in this bitch, and he's like, oh my gosh, I'm about to like go crazy because my brother, like, he can barely even lift a stick. He's not gonna be able to beat me. Boji ends up going Ultra Instinct, dodging all of the shit, and like Kage is impressed. I'm impressed. I'm sitting there, but everyone in the castle is not impressed because they don't think it's an honorable way of fighting. Fuck off. So we see that happen. We see King Daida getting mad, or Prince Daida getting mad. And we see that Boji in like a flashback was like dodging some snakes and shit also. And it was like good. And he's really like running Daida's shit right now. And there's nothing he could do about it. And he's getting frustrated, damn near on the verge of tears. And it was a great sight to see. And I thoroughly loved it. And that's why it's God tier. Food Wars, complicated one, but I'm going to say B tier. Just because it's like, why are these people naked when they're enjoying the food this much? And my young high school mind, I'm gonna watch the show. I'm like, okay, whatever, just can't watch with people in the room, but I'm gonna watch the show, see what's up, because why are clothes coming off when there's food on the table? I just don't get that. So I had to watch it, and I was hooked onto the show. Now the show itself is actually solid, don't get it twisted. But yeah, no, the first episode, it was all right. It was definitely all right. Tomodachi, damn, dude, I'm sorry. I love a lot of these first episodes. With reason, I think, though. But no, Tomodachi Game, I actually only have watched the first episode, and I promise I'm hooked onto it. I just haven't had the time to watch it. But with this show, I mean, we have the main character, and this big-ass robot kid pulls up. If I'm seeing this shit, I'm definitely gonna deck him in his mouth. I mean, this robot is like, Mr. Tomodachi is like 7 feet tall. What even? The kids are unfazed by it, so I guess it's like this is a normality in this world. But then Tomodachi's talking to them, and he's like, yo, listen, debt, gotta clear it. One of you guys has debt, so now all of you have to play for this and that. And then they're like, oh, we're all friends. Like, mentally, they're like, oh, we're all friends. This will either gonna go really bad, really good. We'll see what happens. They end up doing this game, and all of their answers are just like not working. Like, they're not getting the right answers that they want to get. And then it comes down to the final straw, and the rules say no talking or whatever. Main character decides he wants to talk, and then he says some shit about some girl's underwear, asking if they know the color of her underwear or something. And I'm pretty sure he broke the rules, unless he was trying to make some sort of big brain play, and we don't know it yet. That's kind of how the episode ended. And the intensity in that episode was unmatched. There was so much, it was just so intense because I didn't know which way they were going to take it, and I definitely didn't expect that main character, by the way he introduced himself, to end the episode the way he did. And I'm definitely wanting to watch more, and I'm going to watch more. I just haven't had the time. But that first episode was great. With Slime, it's another isekai with a great first episode. I'm sitting here and I'm just like, okay, this dude got shanked in front of his students. It's like, what can he do? I mean, it sucked. I think he got robbed or something at the same time. But then he respawns in this world and he's a slime, and I'm like, okay, this is something I haven't seen before. How is this slime gonna get strong in this world that has dragons and ogres and giants and all this shit? And then I start see him absorbing all of these materials, and I'm like, okay, that's probably gonna be a very big point in how he gets stronger, considering he's probably just gonna end up absorbing people and all their powers and absorbing just random shit. So we see him doing that in the cave, and then he meets this big ass dragon. They make a friendship pact type of deal, and it's a good episode. And there's, again, no wasted time on the screen for this. There's always something I think useful going on with Slime episode 1, and I did thoroughly enjoy it. With Classroom of the Elite, honestly, I'm thinking like D tier. I'm thinking D tier. It's not trash, but I mean, we got Koji, who's having like a lot of inner dialogue, just talking about school, how he's never had a girlfriend and he never got a girl's number before, and he got like Horikita's number. And you meet Horikita for the first time, and they have their interactions, and I think we meet Kushida too. But I mean, other than that, that's really it. There's nothing It's very, very introductory. And with the amount of, I'm only putting it in D because with the amount of hype that I had going into this show, because a lot of my friends were like, this is like the best anime ever, blah, 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 blah. I'm thinking this shit's going to be off the wall crazy. So now I'm like anticipating someone's going to get like killed in school or something, and I'm very confused. So I think that's why I had a negative impression on the first episode. The show itself is good. It's like a B tier, but that first episode just wasn't what I expected it to be. So I think that's why I have it placed where it's at. Cowboy Bebop, I feel like it's an automatic A just because the environment was so cool and I was already engaged. Like off the bat, I was just like, okay, this whole cowboy bounty hunter world thing, this is a solid concept and I've never seen it done and I've never seen it replicated now to this day, because you can't really replicate that in an anime and do it in a better fashion than Cowboy Bebop did. But no, I mean, we're just introduced to, I think, Spike and Jet, and then they do whatever. But I mean, the episode itself, just visually, there are some shows that like there doesn't have to be much story, much action, much anything going on the while you're watching, but just the whole aesthetic of the show just keeps you watching. It's very relaxing, and that's kind of how I felt with Cowboy Bebop and the first episode, and that's why I would put it in A tier. Shield Hero, another A tier. We're introduced to the whore, Malty, aka. But as I just said with Slime, a lot of these isekais always have strong first episodes. Dude's reincarnated into the video game type of world, and he has a shield. He happens to be like the weakest of the four horsemen of this world, I guess you could say. And all of them have some sort of attack power, and he ends up having a defensive power. So it's like, how can he utilize this to his best advantage? Because it's like, yes, he could fortify himself to the max degree, but he's gonna need to have some sort of offense at some point. You know what I mean? When you have like a sword, for example, you could defend yourself with a sword to an extent, but you also have that attack potency. With the shield, it's like you could only kind of guard yourself. You could hit someone with a shield, but I mean, it's only really as hard as you swing, you know? So you're kind of interested in seeing that, but more so of like the whole him getting exiled because of multi type of deal. I was like, okay, now we're getting, so I have to watch more because I need to see her gone from the show. So next, Samurai Champloo. Samurai Champloo was another one of those Cowboy Bebop things. It was just watching it back in 2015, 2016, the whole atmosphere of the show, introduced to Mugen and Jin and the girl, and then they get tied up and captured in the prison thing, and then she gets them out. I mean, the whole aesthetic of the show was just great. And then you see how Mugen fights compared to how Jin fights. They have their little rivalry thing going on. And it was just an all-in-all great episode. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And yeah, Banana Fish is another one that I would probably put in D just because I never was engaged. That is the one show on this list that I was like, I watched the first episode and I didn't like it. Like with Vinland, I wasn't necessarily hooked, but I was like, oh, okay, like let me watch some more and let me see. Because I was interested. I wasn't hooked though. With Banana Fish, I watched the first episode and I just wasn't interested or hooked. And that's really all I got to say about it. My Hero is a very similar thing to Black Clover. You know, Deku has no power, just like Asta, and then he ends up getting in a situation, which then he acts heroically to All Might. All Might's like, let me train you. I'm going to give you this power since you don't have one. And that's how it went. Very shonen-y. It was enjoyable, and it was a good start off to the show. Pokemon, I genuinely don't know. I don't think I was conscious when the first episode aired, and I don't think I remember even watching it. So I think B is fair. I think B is fair. Just with not knowing. Pokemon's a good show, you know, so I think B is definitely a fair rating. God of High School is another, I'd say God of High School is C, just because it's like, I went to the show expecting crazy fights, and I already knew that's kind of what the show was going to be based off of. And in the first episode, we get some story a little bit, but it's kind of confusing. And we get some fighting, but it's not the best of the best. And that's about it, you know? So, I mean, that's why it would be average. With Claymore, I think Claymore is also another average. We have Claire, who is an Oni or whatever they're called. And then we have the boy. And I think she saves the boy from the Oni. And then he's like, oh, let me travel with you. And then she's like, no, but okay. Or whatever she says. And then they go off in the sunset. And that's type of it. Very slow first episode, but it was okay. It was average. It was definitely average. Oh my gosh, 3 C's in a row? Are you joking? Fairy Tail was another C, just because it's like we're introduced to Natsu about 10 minutes into the episode. Lucy is there. I think that's her name. Lucy is there, and she's just kind of like getting to this town. She's exploring or whatever. And we find out she could also like use this like water mermaid power type of deal or whatever. And she like conjured up the spell. or some shit, and then Natsu fights some people with his firepower, and that's really it. It wasn't anything wild, you know? So that's kind of how I felt with it. JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, I think roughly it's gonna have to be... I'm talking part 1, episode 1, by the way. I think, honestly, another C tier. We're introduced to Dian. We're introduced to Dio and his villainous ways, and you could just see that he is gonna be a problem. He looks evil. He looks like he is just devious and he's a bad kid. And then you see him in, I think, Jonathan? I'm pretty sure Jonathan's rivalry and just them going back and forth and why Dio's there. And it is definitely okay, but the first episode, other than like the art style, nothing really was like, oh my gosh, like I want to watch more. And I think they showed the mask too, if I recall. So I think the mask also kind of like brought me in, because at the end of the first episode, didn't Dio like fuck with the mask or something? Yeah, we just see that Dio isn't a madman. I think he burns the dog in the first episode too, or he does a lot of shit. So honestly, I would maybe put it in B, just because he's really like villainous, and he was doing some shit that I have never seen before. I was like, wow, what a fucking asshole. So yeah, I would put part 1, episode 1 in B. Spy Family, I thought Spy Family started off great. I think Spy Family would be an A tier for what the show was supposed to be. I think it started off really well. We see this spy who could steal people's faces and identities and shit, and then we have this girl who's telepathic, and then she's automatically hitting it off with the comedy, and then Lloyd is in a situation where he gets kidnapped or whatever, and he has to escape, and then he's like, should I take Anya? And then Anya's like, oh, I'll go with you or whatever. And it was good. It was a very good comical first episode. Again, as I said, the show was trying to hit off with that comedy, and it did. Instantly, I was like, wow, this is a funny show, and I don't even laugh at anime like that. So Spy Family, very good start. Code Geass, I would say is another A. Yeah, I would say Code Geass started off solid. We see Lelouch and just CC's origins kind of, and then Lelouch is in this situation. He's actually operating some mechs, but then at the end of the episode, he gets the Geass because he finds CC, who's unconscious. No, was it CC? I don't even remember if it was CC or another person, but then he like makes the pact, and then he's like, yup, I'm down, like, let's do it. And then he goes to the people, he's like, I'm Lelouch V. Britannia, you will listen to me. And then they like kill themselves or whatever. And it was cold. It was super cold. So it definitely made me want to keep watching, especially that ending. I was like, okay, this guy is going to become a light Yagami type of character off the bat. That's instantly what I thought. Was it as good as the Death Note episode? No, not to me. But it was definitely a very, very solid A tier, great first episode. And then lastly, Jujutsu Kaisen actually started off fairly slow. I mean, we have Itadori, who has some superhuman strength, clearly. They get this cursed finger. I love the way the show's animated and how the monsters look. Megumi pulls up and they're having some issues in the school. But the whole thing with his grandpa, I feel like that's like very, very... If that was a better story in some way, shape, or form, and maybe it gets deeper, I would have liked it more. But the grandpa's literally like, oh, just get strong, save people. But like, it's annoying to me, because it's like any normal grandparent is not going to say that to like a normal person. And Itadori at the time was a very normal person, unless the grandpa knew things that Itadori didn't, and that's why he said that line specifically. So maybe that's something I need to find out. But as of right now, it's like, they're not going to be like, oh, go save people. They'll be like, oh, go make money, do this, this, and that, you know? So it was kind of cheesy. But I would say B. I was engaged. I definitely was engaged, but at the end of the episode, I wasn't. I remember I watched it at the same time as my friends, and I was like, damn, I want to see the next episode. Like, I was really excited, because I was more so just like looking at that art style, and the show was very modern. Like, there were cars, but then there were like demons, and I was like liking it. I was liking the transition to like more modern times, because a lot of these anime such as Demon Slayer, you're not going to see people with cell phones and shit like that, or like Naruto, or... You know, and if they do have technology, they have shit like mechs. So Jujutsu Kaisen is like, in terms of technology, our time, and it's kind of like our world if just like some demons got thrown into it and some like shit, you know. So I that's why I was really excited to see what was going on and what was happening. But I would say Jujutsu Kaisen had like a B tier first episode, and that this is now the end of my first episode tier list. I could organize them in their rows, but I feel like that would just take too long. But this is roughly how I'm feeling. I'm so tired. I've been doing so much. So maybe I maybe I fucked up a bit and I'm delusional, but I am confident for the most part that in terms of my opinion, this is kind of where I like everything. I like how this is looking. And yeah, as I said, at the end of the day, my opinion. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter. So, yeah. But like the video, subscribe. You know what time it is. You know what we're doing over here. On the road to 10K. Let's get it.